Varys had always been patient. He had woven his web across the 7 kingdoms, silently listening, silently manipulating. For years he whispered promises in the dark, moved pawns across the board, and waited for the right moment. But patience had its limits. The wars had torn Westeros apart, and the rulers he had tried to advise, Robert, Joffrey, Cersei, even Daenerys, had proven mad, selfish, or blind. Varys had come to a grim conclusion. If no one else could save the realm, he must. Not by serving, not by whispering, but by ruling. The plan was born in the heart of King's Landing, hidden deep beneath the Red Keep in ancient tunnels only Varys knew. He had gathered his loyal little birds, now young men and women trained in the arts of stealth, poison, and assassination. At the same time, he sought darker alliances, alchemists, sorcerers from Essos, even betrayers within the City Watch. Promises were made, secrets sold. In the Free Cities, a great horn was found, rumored to control dragons. The day of reckoning was chosen carefully. Cersei still ruled from the Red Keep, but after Daenerys' brutal assault, the city was weak, leaderless, and full of fear. The Eye. Lords of Westeros squabbled like children. Varys moved first. At midnight, wildfire exploded beneath the Great Sept, sending flames high into the sky. The faith militant, those zealots who once terrified kings, were wiped out in seconds. In the chaos, Varys' spies unleashed poison into the food stores of the noble houses. Dozens of lords and their heirs died overnight, their power broken. As the sun rose, black banners unfurled over the Red Keep, a 3-headed dragon crowned. With a spider, Varys did not hide in the shadows this time. He stood on the Iron Throne itself, clad in flowing crimson robes, a simple crown of black iron upon his bald head. "I do this for the realm," he said to the gathered crowd of surviving nobles, "for the people who suffer while you squabble for power." There were no cheers, only stunned silence and fear. Varys smiled. Fear would do, for now. The streets survived. King's Landing ran red. Those who dared defy the spider's rule met brutal ends. Varys unleashed the remnants of the Unsullied loyal to him, silent and efficient, alongside gold-cloaked traitors who owed their survival to his mercy. The noble houses still remaining in the capital were crushed within days. The common folk, however, were spared, even elevated. Varys made a grand proclamation from the Iron Throne. The old order is dead. Nobles who have ruled through cruelty and greed shall rule no more. The realm belongs to those who have suffered, bled, and starved. While kings feasted, he opened the granaries, ordered coins minted for rebuilding, and declared new laws. No man's birth would determine his worth. Orphans were taken into schools, food was distributed in the poorest districts. The people, dazed and wary, began to murmur hope. But hope came at a terrible price. The spider's little birds, is no longer children but deadly agents, turned King's Landing into a city of informants. Whispers of rebellion, even casual discontent, reached the Red Keep by nightfall. At dawn, the City Watch dragged the accused from their homes. Varys did not enjoy these purges, but he knew they were necessary. The realm must be cleansed before. It can heal, he told himself, watching the pyres burn in the square. Meanwhile, in the north, Sansa Stark received news of the spider's coup. She sat silent at Winterfell's high table, the letter trembling in her hand. Varys had offered her a place in his new order, a lady protector of the north under his reign. She crumpled the parchment and tossed it into the fire. "The north remembers," she whispered, "and the north will not kneel to spiders." Beyond the sea in Meereen, word reached Daenerys Targaryen too. Furious, betrayed, and grieving, she swore vengeance. Though weakened after her devastation of King's Landing, she still had one dragon, Drogon, and a handful of loyal followers. "If Varys wants fire and blood," she snarled, "I will give him more than he ever dreamed." But Varys was ready. He sent emissaries to the free cities, offering riches and promises to mercenaries, magicians, and assassins. His web stretched across the known world now, unseen but suffocating. He was no fool. Dragons would come, northern armies would march, and, when they did, he would be waiting with wildfire, sorcery, and iron. This was not a Game of Thrones anymore. It was a war for the soul of Westeros. Snow fell thick over Winterfell as banners were raised once more. The direwolf of House Stark flew high alongside dozens of lesser houses, sworn to the north and to vengeance. Sansa Stark stood atop the battlements, cloaked in wolf fur, her eyes cold as the blizzards sweeping the land. She had no illusions about the spider's nature. Varys might cloak his rule in promises of justice and equality, but Sansa knew tyranny when she saw it. The northern lords gathered in the great hall. "We cannot fight him alone," Lord Glover said, pounding a mailed fist on the table. "He has the capital, the gold, the reach. And the dragons?" Lady Mormont's younger cousin, now ruling Bear Island, asked grimly. "No," Sansa replied. "Daenerys still rides. Drogon lives. And she will not suffer Varys to sit the throne long." There was muttering around the hall, fear, mistrust, but Sansa silenced them with a single glance. "We will send ravens," she declared. "To the Vale, to the Riverlands, to the Reach, Westeros. We'll remember its true rulers, not a eunuch playing at king." Meanwhile, in the south, Varys solidified his grip. He offered positions to clever commoners and rewarded loyalty ruthlessly. Smiths, merchants, healers, all found new favor if they bent the knee. The noble houses that survived were stripped of lands and titles, their heirs held hostage in the Red Keep's newly expanded dungeons. But Varys was no fool. He knew force alone could not rule Westeros forever. He commissioned grand spectacles. In the streets, plays mocking the cruelty of past kings and queens, public speeches praising the new order. Every corner of the city was filled with whispers of a better world, where power came not from birthright, but from merit. Yet, underneath, the pageantry terror ruled. One evening, a group of children sang a mocking song about the fat Spider King in Flea Bottom. The next morning, their heads were found mounted on the Blackwater Gate. The message was clear. Loyalty was life. Mockery was death. Far across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen sailed toward Westeros once more, her fleet leaner, but still fierce. She no longer dreamed of ruling gently. Varys's betrayal had hardened her heart. "I offered them freedom," she told Grey Worm, standing upon Drogon's broad back. "They chose treachery. Now they will know fire." Varys watched her fleet approach through his spymaster's reports. He met with Qyburn's successor, a sorcerer from Ashai, in the dark cellars below the Red Keep. Together, they whispered dark spells over ancient horns, forging weapons not seen in Westeros since the Age of Heroes. If Daenerys came, she would not find a broken city. She would find a fortress of blood and fire. The north gathered its armies. The dragon crossed the narrow sea. The realm trembled as two storms rose, one of fire, one of ice, and in the center sat Varys, calm as ever, weaving the final strands of his web. The drums of war thundered across Westeros. From the north, a vast army of Stark bannermen, Vale Knights and Riverland soldiers marched south under Sansa's banners. From the east, Daenerys came, her fleet blackening the waters, with Drogon soaring above like a living storm. King's Landing braced itself. Varys walked through the Red Keep's dark halls, his crimson robes trailing behind him. Though outwardly calm, he knew the city could not withstand a siege from two fronts forever. But he had prepared. Oh, how he had prepared. Throughout the city, caches of wildfire were hidden, not just beneath the great sept as before, but under. Key gates, towers, and even the sewers. If the city must fall, it would burn first. The Spider had also ordered the construction of massive scorpion ballistae, thicker and deadlier than any before, lining the walls and rooftops. Alchemists had brewed new concoctions, and strange mercenaries from the east stalked the streets, their armor painted black, their swords curved and cruel. No one would take King's Landing easily. Not while Varys ruled. The first to arrive was Sansa's army. The Northmen established a blockade around the city, cutting off supply lines. Sansa set up her war tent in the fields outside the city, working day and night with her generals. "We starve him out," she commanded. "We don't waste lives assaulting his walls. Time is on our side." But time was not on Daenerys' side. When she arrived, her fleet battered but determined, she demanded immediate action. "We burn the gates, we take the city," she told Sansa, fire blazing in her violet eyes. "He is a usurper. A spider spinning lies over the throne that is mine by blood." Sansa refused. "If you burn the city, you will be no better than him. Their alliance, always fragile, threatened to crumble. Only Tyrion Lannister, gaunt, weary, yet still clever, managed to broker a tense agreement. Give Varys a choice, Tyrion proposed. Surrender or face dragonfire. And so, under a white flag, Tyrion himself rode alone to the city gates. Inside, Varys met him atop the battlements. The two old conspirators, once friends, faced each other with centuries of broken trust between them. "You could have been a kingmaker," Tyrion said bitterly. "Instead, you became a king." Varys's face was unreadable. "The realm needed saving. You know it." "Surrender," Tyrion urged. "Spare the people. Spare yourself." Varys smiled thinly. "I have already spared them. I have given them justice, peace, opportunity. You, my dear friend, would return them to the same greedy fools who have ruled them for centuries." "There will be no mercy if you refuse," Tyrion warned. "I expect none," Varys replied. "Fire and blood, they say." He leaned forward, voice softer than silk. "But remember, Tyrion, when fire comes, it consumes everything. Even the innocent." Tyrion returned to the camps, heart heavy. He delivered Varys's answer. The spider would not surrender. The siege turned bloody within days. Drogon soared above the walls, raining fire upon scorpions and soldiers alike. The defenders answered with wildfire grenades and massive bolts that darkened the sky. For every street Daenerys burned, Varys's spies detonated hidden caches of wildfire behind the attackers, trapping and slaughtering hundreds. The city became a labyrinth of fire and death. Smoke blotted out the sun. The Blackwater Bay ran green with burning wildfire. King's Landing was dying, and Varys, seated upon the Iron Throne, watched it all with cold, steady eyes. "This is the price of salvation," he whispered. Outside the gates, Sansa looked upon the horror and made a fateful decision. "If Daenerys burns the city to ashes, we lose everything. The North will not follow a tyrant." She summoned her most trusted commanders. "We must take the Red Keep ourselves," she said, "before it's too late." Thus the stage was set. The spider, the wolf, and the dragon, all poised to clash for the ruins of a dying kingdom. The city was a graveyard. Ash drifted from the sky like snow. Stone towers collapsed in bursts of flame. Streets once filled with merchants and children now crawled with corpses and shattered dreams. And still, Varys sat atop the Iron Throne, unmoving, as if he were part of the stone itself. He knew it was only a matter of time now. His enemies circled like wolves, dragons, and ghosts from the past. He had one final gambit prepared, but he would not waste it too early. Timing was everything. In the camps outside the broken gates, Sansa Stark prepared her boldest move yet. She sent her fastest riders through the smouldering ruins, rallying Northmen, Riverlanders, and Vale Knights who had broken into the city. Under cover of smoke, they would strike for the Red Keep and end the spider's reign before Daenerys could reduce the city to rubble. Jon Snow rode beside her, silent and grim. Though weary of war, Jon could not turn away. He had seen what Daenerys could do when rage consumed her. He had seen the streets of King's Landing burn once before, and he would not see it happen again. "We take the throne," Sansa said to Jon, gripping her sword hilt tight. "We end this madness, both Varys and Daenerys if we must." Jon said nothing, but the look in his eyes was answer enough. Under the cover of night, the Northmen struck. Through broken sewers, over shattered walls, up secret paths known only to a few. The Red Keep, once impregnable, was now a wounded beast, and they were the hunters. Inside, Varys received reports calmly. "The northern forces are breaching the lower halls," one spy gasped, bloodied and breathless. Varys nodded. "Let them come." He ordered his last defenders, hardened mercenaries from Essos and desperate gold cloaks, to make their final stand. Traps were sprung, boiling oil poured down narrow stairwells, archers unleashed volleys from hidden murder holes. Wildfire was set aflame in corridors to slow the assault, but the Northmen were relentless. Jon Snow led the charge through the burning Great Hall, cutting down defenders with the cold fury of a man who had seen too much death to fear it anymore. Behind him came Arya Stark, her blade swift and merciless, a ghost slipping through shadows, sowing terror among the defenders. In the chaos, Arya slipped ahead, moving faster than any soldier. She had no interest in honor or negotiations. She was a Stark, but she was also death itself, and she had a name still whispered in her mind: Varys. Above, in the throne room, Varys waited. He had discarded his crown, placing it gently upon the Iron Throne. Victory or death, and he cared not. All that mattered was the realm. The great doors slammed open. Jon Snow entered first, bloodied sword in hand, Sansa close behind, followed by a handful of battered northern soldiers, and facing them, alone but unbowed, stood Varys the Spider. "You think you saved the realm by replacing me?" he said softly. "You are wrong. You will only restore the same cruelty that has destroyed us all before." "No," Sansa said, her voice as cold as the winds of Winterfell. "We build something new, without fear, without monsters." Varys smiled sadly. "Then kill me, Lady Stark, for I am the last monster left to slay." Jon stepped forward. His sword glinted in the firelight. He did not hesitate. He had made too many mistakes hesitating before. With one clean strike, he drove Longclaw through Varys's heart. The spider staggered, a strange, peaceful expression crossing his face. "For the realm," he whispered as he fell. And so ended the reign of Varys the Spider, king of the Seven Kingdoms. But as his blood pooled across the broken stones, none noticed the faint hum beneath their feet, the final trap he had set, waiting to be unleashed. Far beneath the Red Keep, wildfire stores began to ignite. The real battle for survival had just begun. At first, there was silence, the kind of silence that hangs heavy in the lungs, pregnant with terror. Then came the rumble, deep, terrible, growing louder with each breath. Jon Snow and Sansa Stark had barely time to exchange a single look before the floor beneath them lurched violently, cracks splitting the throne room's ancient stone. The Iron Throne itself groaned as if alive, the blackened swords twisted and shaking. Wildfire, the legacy of Varys's final vengeance. A massive explosion ripped through the lower halls of the Red Keep, emerald fire bursting upward in a hurricane of heat and death. The blast shattered walls, tore apart ceilings and swallowed hundreds in a blink. Sansa screamed for her soldiers to retreat. Jon grabbed Arya by the arm, dragging her toward a side corridor as another explosion tore the throne room apart. Chunks of burning stone rained down. The Iron Throne was engulfed in green flames, melting into a twisted ruin. Outside, the city fared no better. Hidden caches placed by Varys throughout King's Landing ignited one after another. Towers collapsed into the streets. Entire neighborhoods vanished in surges of sickly green fire. The people screamed, a sound lost in the roar of destruction. The proud domes of the Red Keep buckled and fell. In the fields outside, Daenerys watched from atop Drogon, horror spreading across her face. This was no battle. This was annihilation. The Spider had ensured that if he could not have the realm, no one would. Sansa, Jon, and Arya stumbled through collapsing halls, coughing, bleeding, half-blind from smoke. Soldiers who had survived the battle against Varys's mercenaries now died screaming as flames swept through every passage. "We have to get out," Arya shouted, her voice hoarse. But escape was no longer simple. The Red Keep, heart of the Seven Kingdoms, was now a burning maze. In the chaos, Sansa was separated from the others, knocked unconscious by a falling beam. Jon and Arya fought their way through, slashing down panicked guards and sidestepping, roaring walls of fire. They found themselves on the collapsed outer ramparts, overlooking the ruined city. Ash and fire blurred the line between sky and earth. King's Landing was dying, and with it, perhaps, all dreams of a new Westeros. Outside, the wall's northern soldiers watched helplessly as flames consumed the capital. Lords of the Vale and Riverlands retreated in terror. Refugees flooded the fields, some still ablaze, screaming for help that would not come. Jon, coughing blood, turned to Arya. "We have to find Sansa," he gasped. "We will," she said, though. Her face was grim. "If she's still alive." Above them, Drogon roared in agony, feeling the wildfire's unnatural heat sear his scales. Daenerys clutched the reins, torn between vengeance and despair. The city she wanted to rule was burning before her eyes, not by her hand this time, but by the ghost of Varys. A decision had to be made. Would she unleash Drogon's full fury to extinguish the wildfire and claim the ruins, or would she turn away, accepting that King's Landing and her dreams were lost? In the end, Daenerys chose fire. She urged Drogon into a furious dive, spewing black and red flames across the green infernos, trying desperately to burn out the wildfire before it spread further. But it was like fighting a tidal wave with a candle. In the smoke and chaos, Jon Snow gritted his teeth. If Daenerys survived this, she would never stop. She would see herself as the only true queen even after this nightmare, and Jon knew then, deep in his scarred heart, that the final battle was still to come. Not against Varys, not against the Spider's traps, but against Daenerys Stormborn, breaker of chains, now Queen of Ashes. The wolf and the dragon would clash once more, and only one would be left to rebuild the realm from the ashes. The Red Keep was gone. By sunrise, nothing remained of the grand halls, the towering spires, the Iron Throne. Only a smouldering mountain of blackened stone and green flames, still flickering stubbornly beneath the ruins. Sansa Stark woke in the rubble, her head bleeding, her body broken but alive. Through blurred vision, she saw the devastation Varys had left behind, not just in stone and steel, but in the hearts of the people. Thousands were dead. The great city, once the pride of Westeros, was now a tomb. She staggered to her feet, clutching a fallen bannerman's sword for support. Somewhere amid the ashes, Jon Snow and Arya fought on, searching for survivors, rallying what remained of their forces. Above them all, Drogon circled like a grim shadow, his black wings cutting across the red dawn sky. Upon his back, Daenerys watched the dying city with an expression carved from stone. The wildfire had taken more than King's Landing. It had burned away Daenerys' last traces of mercy. She landed Drogon near the ruins, dismounting with an imperial grace. Grey Worm and the remnants of her Unsullied stood at her back, grim and bloodied. Jon Snow approached through the smoke, armor scorched, cloak torn, sword blackened, but still in hand. He met Daenerys in the courtyard that had once led to the Iron Throne, now just broken stones and drifting ash. "You see what's left," he said, voice hoarse. "There is no kingdom to rule." Daenerys' violet eyes burned with a fevered light. "There is always something to rebuild. From ashes a new world can be born, a better one, my world." Jon tightened his grip on Longclaw. "You would build it on bones. Better than living under the rule of those who betrayed the people for centuries." She snapped. Varys was right about one thing. The old world must be destroyed to make way for the new. Behind Jon, Sansa limped into view, Arya at her side, her sharp dagger ready. "You're no better than the Spider," Sansa said coldly. "Maybe worse." Daenerys smiled thinly. "Then bend the knee, Sansa Stark. Bend the knee and be part of the new world, or be burned away with the old." Sansa lifted her chin. "The North will never kneel again." Silence. The ash fell like snow. Two queens, one throne, yet no crown worth ruling over now. Daenerys raised her hand. Grey Worm stepped forward, unsheathing his spear. The Unsullied moved into formation, shields raised. The message was clear: kneel or die. Jon's heart twisted. He had sworn loyalty to Daenerys once. He had loved her once. But now he saw the truth. She would never be the savior they needed. She would rule not by love, but by fear and fire. "I loved you," Jon whispered. Daenerys' face softened, just for a heartbeat. "And I loved you," she said. "But love is not what Westeros needs. It needs strength." Jon made his choice. Before Grey Worm could strike, Jon lunged forward. Longclaw pierced the space between them, catching the sunlight in a deadly arc. Drogon shrieked from above. The Unsullied surged forward. Arya darted into the fray, a shadow of death, while Sansa rallied the Northmen who had survived. The last battle for Westeros had begun, not for the Iron Throne, not for gold or glory, but for the soul of the realm itself, brother against brother. Wolf against dragon, hope against fury. In the chaos, Daenerys unleashed Drogon upon the battlefield. His roar shook the ruins, His fire seared the sky. Yet even in his fury, Drogon hesitated when his flames neared Jon Snow, the blood of the dragon ran too deep. Jon pressed forward, cutting a bloody path through unsullied soldiers, his mind blank but for a single purpose: end the tyrant before she could destroy what little remained. Daenerys mounted Drogon again, soaring into the air, raining down fire upon the resisting armies. Arya disappeared into the smoke, hunting a queen. Sansa, sword in hand, led her people through the wreckage, refusing to surrender, refusing to fall. This was not just the end of Varys's dream. This was the death throes of an entire world, and only blood could decide what would be born from its ashes. Ash rained down like silent snowflakes. The Red Keep was no more. King's Landing was no more. The realm itself seemed to shudder on the edge of oblivion. Jon Snow faced Daenerys Stormborn one last time, both surrounded by smoke, ruin, and the dying embers of what once was. Drogon hovered. Above them, massive wings beating the ash-filled air, his eyes burning with fury and sadness. Grey Worm, wounded but unbroken, fought furiously with the last of the Unsullied. Northmen and Vale Knights clashed in brutal pockets of resistance, but it was clear now. This was no longer a war for land or honor. It was a war for survival. Jon stepped toward Daenerys, his sword lowered, but his heart steeled. "Please," he said, voice raw, "it doesn't have to end this way." Daenerys, clad in scorched black armor, blood smeared across her brow, shook her head slowly. "It already has," she whispered. "Fire and blood, Jon. That is the only language this world understands." From the shadows, Arya moved. Silent as a ghost, she slipped past burning wreckage and fallen soldiers, dagger glinting in her hand. Sansa stood atop a shattered wall, watching. It all unfold, the final act of a long, bitter play. She clenched her fist so tightly her nails cut into her palms. She had led her people into this madness. She would see it end. Daenerys raised her hand to Drogon, commanding him silently. The dragon roared, preparing to unleash his terrible breath, once more, not upon soldiers, but upon those who dared defy their queen. Jon knew what he had to do. "I'm sorry," he whispered. In a flash he drove Longclaw into Daenerys' chest. The blade pierced through her armor into her heart. Her violet eyes widened in shock, not in pain, but in betrayal. As she fell into Jon's arms, blood pouring. From her wound, Drogon screamed, a sound of such anguish it seemed to tear the very heavens apart. Jon knelt with her in the ash, cradling her body. Daenerys' final breath was a shudder, a whisper. "Break the wheel." And then she was gone. Drogon landed with a thunderous crash beside them. For a moment, Jon thought the dragon would kill him, burn him to ash. But Drogon did not attack. Instead, he let out a low, broken moan, nudging Daenerys' body with his snout, mourning her. Then, with a furious roar, Drogon turned and unleashed his fire, not at Jon, not at the soldiers, but at the ruined remnants of the Iron Throne itself. The ancient seat of power melted into slag, its twisted swords drooping and hissing under the heat of dragonfire. The wheel was broken at last. Drogon grasped Daenerys' lifeless body in his massive claws, and with a final earth-shaking cry, soared into the sky. Higher and higher he flew, until he disappeared into the clouds, carrying the last Targaryen into legend. The battlefield fell silent. The fighting stopped. The soldiers lowered their swords. The ashes settled. Sansa approached Jon, bloodied and pale. "You did what had to be done," she said, though her voice trembled with grief. "I betrayed her," Jon whispered, hollow. "I loved her." "You saved the realm," Sansa answered. "You saved us all." In the days that followed, the survivors gathered at the Dragon Pit, the only place large enough to hold them all. Lords and ladies from what remained of Westeros came to decide the future. It was Sansa who spoke first. "The North will remain independent," she declared. "Never again will we kneel to a southern throne." No one had the strength to argue. Bran Stark, wise and strange, was chosen to lead what remained of the Seven Kingdoms, not as king by birthright but by choice. A council would rule beside him, to prevent another tyrant from rising. Arya sailed west, chasing distant dreams beyond the sunset. Jon Snow, haunted and weary, took the black once more, returning to the Night's Watch, not as punishment, but as penance. And so ended the war that Varys had begun when he reached for the throne with fire and blood. The realm would heal, slowly, painfully. The scars of the spider's reign, the dragon's fury, and the wolf's vengeance would never be forgotten. But amidst the ashen ruin, a new spring would one day bloom, a dream of hope, a dream of peace, a dream of spring.